Well, we have another episode of this Church Encourager podcast. Dad, thanks for being here. We are looking at our guide for Kingdom Alignment Part 12. And, we got to the verse. It's a very famous verse right before a next famous verse in this famous sermon. Look at the birds, consider the wildflowers as we read Matthew chapter 6, verses 26 through 30. And as we hear Jesus telling the listeners of the Sermon on the Mount to look at those birds and to consider those wildflowers, what do you think he wants us to learn from just these ordinary parts of creation?
I think it's important that there are reminders of him everywhere if you stop and look. And, if you get how intricate creation really is. And that, I think, some people have culturally wandered away because they don't think it was God that did all of it. And they leave it down to random chances or something. But, the reality of how things work together. And I don't think you have to look very long to realize there had to be design in place for all these things, right? I mean, back to DNA, there has to be design. There has to be a designer. So when in the busyness of our lives, I think it's helpful that there are things right in front of us that can just make us stop for a moment. And that's what he was doing. Look, catch your breath. You're anxious. He's talking to people that are anxious and worried and stressed 2,000 years ago. And he's saying, look, just stop whatever it is you're doing. And you think about how fast things are going now, right? I mean, it's just, but he's saying, just stop for a second. Look at the birds, consider the birds, look at the flowers, look at what God does, and allow that to help you just catch your breath and remember there's a God who loves you and who considers you more valuable than the birds and the flowers, and that he's with you and for you and wants the very best for you. And so it's just a reminder to look at that, and that Jesus often points to simple things. It's the kingdom of God is the rule and reign of God is fascinating, but it's not so complicated that you can't see it woven into what's right around you if you stop and look. And that's kind of the invitation I think that he's given us, is just stop and look and listen and remember who God is and settle in him again before you continue on.
Good. You said in the message that worry causes us to forget our value. Can you think of an experience in your life? Because, those are really impactful when we can kind of bring our personal experiences in that made you feel perhaps less valued or less cared for by God. And what helped you through that?
I'd say that those are, they're not long seasons. Sometimes they're just momentary. I've been thinking all day about, right after Hurricane Irma, when I was wandering around the church, and I was like there wasn't hardly anybody back. I got back early and there was no one around, and the church had been damaged, and somebody had dropped off some stuff in the parking lot, I think trying to be helpful, but the deer had gotten into it and scattered it all over the parking lot. And so it was a mess. And so I'm picking, it's hot, right? And I'm stressed. There's no electricity. There's no water. I'm by myself. I'm like, okay, I think what they were trying to do was nice, but now it's a huge mess. I'm trying to pick it up. And I'm like, Lord, I really didn't want to have a hurricane. And I'm trying not to be a whiner, but this is what happens next. And really that, I didn't get to do that for more than a couple of minutes before I felt the Lord say that thing to me that's been such a big deal to me. Steve, just open the door and get out of the way. And somehow I knew that and almost immediately things started to happen. So, what helps me through it is remembering the faithfulness of God and that he's always been there. He's always got us. You could let so many things take you out, like when COVID happened, and what's that going to look like? And yet God was so faithful. And almost immediately, you might get to ponder for a moment or two, uh-oh. And then, but you go, but God's God, he's got this. And so I think that can be really helpful. And I think, it's hopefully good to be at a point where he's got you. It doesn't mean that things can't be hard or difficult but that that all of this is temporary anyway, and he's got us now and forever.
Absolutely. One of the impactful things you said during the sermon for me, it was really good. You mentioned that the culture trains us to notice what's wrong, while Jesus says for us to notice what's true. Um, how do you think that tension plays out in our lives? Whether it be through the news or social media, those are kind of the common places where it seems like this era of people seem to go for noticing things or just whatever. But where do you see this tension, and
It's
how do
all
we handle it?
so negative.
Yeah.
That's what we get. We get negative, negative, negative. It's depressing. They're just stirring up fear and worry. I mean, they're stirring up the very things that this whole message is saying you don't have to do that, because they only, it seems to me they often look for what's sensational or what keeps people, they have to keep watching it, right? There's a motivation behind all that, which is ultimately they want you to watch. So you watch commercials so they make money. Got very simplified the whole step, but you get it. And so, news by and large, and even when you read social media, everybody's so mean. I don't, I just quit. It's just the constant, everybody judging everybody and picking on anything that's a little bit different from them. So it's like, okay. And I think if that's what you get used to, then you pick that up and you start doing the same thing. You're just noticing all the little things you can pick on or what's wrong. And Jesus wants us to look for what's true. And there's a big difference. I mean, there's a lot of very difficult things going on in the world around us, no doubt about it. But you don't have to be consumed with fear or worry or get mean because of it. Or judgmental. You have to go, okay, I get it. And what should I do? I should pray and I should love God and I should love others. And I'm always trying to tell people, look, I think we need to be aware of what's happening all over the country, all over the world. But your main focus needs to be what's happening like right outside your window. And I think that's very biblical. It always started, start where you're at, and then you move out from there as you can. But a lot of people have skipped that start where you're at step.
Mhm.
And so what's going on where you are? I mean, right where you are, and see how you can pray for that and how you can make a difference in your community. How can you even love people? How you can, be useful. And I think that changes things, and it begins to change the how much we just get focused on all of the big stuff that's going everywhere that we really have no control over anyway. And it tends to take us out of that place of settledness. And I was talking about soul rest. You get so stirred up, your soul can't be around. I mean, you could get so stirred up because of what's happening in the world that you could easily kind of forget, but God's still in charge and God's got us, and he's going to restore everything. It's all coming back right. And so I just think a lot of that is perspective. And we get fixed on what's wrong. I get that. And but when you look on what's true, even in what's wrong, there's some help in all of those things. So I think it's just important to note that we've been trained to do certain things, and we need to sort of be aware of those things so we can get our minds retrained by Holy Spirit to see things differently, so that we can have some peace in our souls, even in the midst of difficult situations.
Yeah. It is amazing what those screens do to our judgy McJudgertons, as you would say. It's, everything just exacerbates. We can't even watch like a football game without getting angry at these poor guys doing their best, right? So that's it trains us to be consumers instead of ambassadors. Uh,
Yeah,
just modern
that's
media,
really good. Yeah.
because as consumers, I want what I want. Why is
Mhm.
this like this? It should be like this. And we're easily annoyed and we're angered. Jesus says, "Hey, look at what we've got. Look outside your window. You're an ambassador. You're just a part of the family of God. Go live like that with purpose." And it changes everything, gives you a new filter. And it's so important to for me anyway, I found to just start the day right. The days where I start doing a dumb doom scroll, the day's ruined. The mind is just gone. But I'm the days where I don't and actually kind of get started on the right foot, it's amazing what happens. So
And
it's so
there's an addictive part to that, and they know it.
absolutely. Yeah.
And if you start your day, it's going to be very hard not to keep going back because
Yep.
it fires something in your. This was not done by accident.
No.
These things they know if they can get you in a reel or a scroll and all,
Uh-huh.
and they've dialed you in.
Yep.
They got your number, right? And they can keep you forever. And then they take you. Uh, yeah, we just have to be so careful and cautious when we're almost done with Matthew 6. You're going to finish it up this week, and then which is I'm really looking forward to. And then when you move into Matthew 7 now he's taken everything that's happened in Matthew 5 and 6, and he's saying, now with that, this is how you live. So with all these things in mind, and one of the big topics that will come up is about not being judgy, and because
That was where the Judgy McJudgerton line.
that's because that's what the way I like to call that in church. It makes people laugh because you're addressing a hard thing, and sometimes when you we often think we're not judgy when in fact we're
We're being
extremely judgy.
extremely judgmental. Yeah.
And when you have to sort of nudge people into that, you kind of got to do it in a way where maybe they can laugh at themselves, or they won't look at it. A lot of so much of this stuff is so deep at who we are and so contrary to culture that looking at it is very difficult. That sometimes people feel like, well, I'd have to change everything, and it's like, well, yes. Be nice,
Yeah,
love people.
just
Just be nice. Start with kind. Let's just be kind.
just start with
And
getting off your phone.
yeah. How do
And
you put those down?
come on,
Because
man.
it's they've done it. Like I said, it's very hard to go anywhere, and I don't go out all that often, but when I go to a restaurant or something, like they're all on their phone still. I mean, why do they sit there waiting?
And I mean, going out to eat, that's such a like ancient human experience. Just sharing a meal together, be in the moment. Yet the temptation is there. The conversation just kind of subdues for a little bit.
Yeah. Ooh,
You get
ooh.
on the adult
Yeah.
pacifier. And
What have I missed? Yeah. And it's like,
yeah,
come on, you like, and you aren't old enough to remember like me the days of being. You had a landline at the house, and that was it.
good
And
old rotary phone, huh?
you didn't have contact all day, and
Mhm.
it was just expected. You didn't, unless there was an emergency, you didn't talk to home. There. And now it's like people can almost not go a moment or two without going, who needs me, who's emailed, who's messaged, and it's like this is what we deal with, and I get it, but it's hard to be it's very hard to let your soul rest if you don't unplug a little.
Absolutely. So and replace the urge to doom scroll with the urge to read the word or pray even then. And you gave us a challenge at the end of the sermon to replace an anxious thought with a grateful thought. And I've heard you for decades. You're my dad, and it's just gratitude. Everything changes with a grateful heart. Why do you think gratitude it's is such a powerful tool for retraining the heart to recognize God's faithfulness?
I think it attacks what we've been saying, that we're so used to going to all the negative, wrong, and everything. If we can go to what we're thankful for and see the goodness of God and recognize how amazing He is, and be thankful for what we have instead of always being upset about what we don't have, or focused on what we don't have and thinking that if only I could have that, then I'd finally be happy, when none of that's really true. If you can't figure out how to be grateful and settled where you're at, it then you're not going to get there any other way. And so that it's a retraining that makes things different. It really helps us stop thinking the way that we've been culturally trained to think and get our minds more aligned with how God wants us to think. And really that's gratitude. And so it's a huge, that's why we've been on that for, I mean, there's almost your whole life. I've been telling people to be thankful. So you have, yes, you have heard it for probably as long as
I
you
can
could hear.
attest to it. And you said aligned. It's how we get aligned, and that's been this whole series is kingdom alignments, being aligned with the heart of God. So great word, Dad. Really great message. This has been an amazing series. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to preach this weekend with part 13. For a sneak peek of that, check out our Bible Institute's podcast coming up on Thursday. But I think that'll be enough for today. Dad, thank you so much for imparting your wisdom. We'll be back soon. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.